Welcome, and thank you for joining our breakout session today on Red Hat training and certification. I am thrilled to share with you some of the exciting things we're doing in Red Hat training. Would love to make this interactive, so hopefully you'll have some time for Q&A towards the end. So let's do some introductions. So my name is Ken Goetz. I am Vice President of Global Learning Services here at Red Hat. And joining me today?
Hi, I'm Pete Hnath, and I'm the Director of Curriculum Development.
And I'm Randy Russell. I'm the Director of the Certification Program.
So let's go ahead and get started, and we'll just get into it. One of the things I want to really make sure that everybody understands is sort of what our mission, our larger mission is within Red Hat training. And it's not just Red Hat training, it's actually all of global services. And some of you might also be attending some of the consulting or services breakouts. Our number one focus is on client success. And so when you think about client success, there's a lot of factors there. And the factors that we really focus on within Red Hat training are talent acquisition and talent development. So our certification program assists in the talent acquisition component. Our training programs obviously assist in terms of training development. And we've definitely got our work cut out for us. There is a lot of data that's been written about this cloud skills gap. There's an IDC report that forecasts that this year in 2015, there will be 5 million cloud jobs that will go unfilled. Does anybody know what the biggest barrier to OpenStack adoption is? Any guesses? Training, skills. Yeah, the skills to be able to set it up, to maintain it, to install, to manage it. It's the number one barrier. And then when you think about Linux growth, you know, I'm very excited about Linux growth. We see a lot more critical application deployments going to Linux, and it's occurring at the expense of Windows. But you know, the biggest concern associated with the growth of Linux is actually not some technical issue. It's actually the availability of trained Linux professionals. So this cloud skills gap, customers tell me it's a real concern for them. Now, it's a good problem to have your skills be in demand, and certainly would rather have our skills be in demand than the opposite. But it is a real problem, and how do we rectify that? How do we cross that gap? And so within Red Hat training, there's really two key ways that we're going to try to cross that skills gap that are associated with the skills in using Red Hat products. And the first way is by facilitating the implementation of next generation architectures with new content. Okay, so we're going to talk today a little bit about some of the new content offerings that we're going to bring to market that are going to complement, extend, and accentuate the existing offerings we already have today in our training portfolio. We're going to talk about multi-product courses. We're going to talk about solution-based courses. We're going to talk a little bit about containers. We'll talk a little bit about DevOps. You know, it's interesting when you think about DevOps specifically, you know, it's where do you train? How do you train on DevOps? You know, it's a question we're asking ourselves. You know, it's easy for us to focus just on the products, but what is the play there within DevOps? We know that there are important skills that the market needs there. So what is the role that training can play to enable DevOps? The other key thing, you know, it's great to have new content and new exams to go along with it to validate skills, but that's not enough. What we also have to do is we have to make our training more consumable, more accessible, more modern, more immersive, more on demand, more just in time. We have, you know, a lot of millennials now moving into the workforce. Some of you might be here, consider yourselves millennials. Some may not consider yourselves millennials, but millennials have a new way of learning. They like to learn video. They like to learn using on-demand. They like referenceable material, performance support material. So we need to modernize a little bit some of our content delivery modalities. And so those are the two key themes that we're going to focus on today. And I think we'll start with the first piece, which is how we're going to deliver new content, new certification exams to enable the next generation of IT architecture. So let me turn it over to Randy, and we'll start with that.
All right, thanks, Ken. So how many people have been in IT for, let's say, about 5 years? Okay, 10, 15, 20? Okay, so here's the question I'm going to pose. Every so often there's a new term that gets out there in the market that you hear and you hear and you hear more and more and more. And you know, if you've been around in the industry for 20 years, you know that some of them don't always stick around, but some of them really do. If you started hearing about virtualization at some point, gee, you know what? That actually became a reality. If you were hearing about cloud, guess what? That started becoming a reality. So DevOps is that newest term, and it is becoming a reality. The reason it's becoming a reality is because of the demands that IT shops, developers are facing from their customers, from their end users, okay? So we have this diagram. At the very end of this yellow thing, we have, here's something that shows up in the consumer's hand, okay? You have an application, you have a new feature that you want to push out to the market. It's an idea, or maybe it's a complaint that came in. How do you get that into the consumer's hand as quickly as possible? Because the level of expectation has changed, right? The era in which, gee, I'm using this application, you know, I've complained to the vendor that I need this, or I don't like that, or this doesn't work, and you wait until the next major release, and maybe it's in there, maybe it's not. That's really not where people's expectation is now. Now they reach into their phone, they have a mobile app, and that mobile app, possibly every single time they open that app up, it might have some different functionality in it, right? So that's a very, very demanding environment to work from in terms of that application development and in terms of trying to get that out to the market. And so DevOps is fundamentally about streamlining and shortening that path, okay? Many of you work within DevOps. How many people are in a shop that at least is partly sort of a DevOps model? Yeah, see, and that number is going to be even higher next year, okay? Because the demand is there, that need to move things fast because the competition's doing it, because that level of expectation on the consumer's part is. Now, the thing is that, as I mentioned earlier, DevOps is one of those words that it's getting bandied about a whole lot, and it's accumulating a certain amount of cruft, but there's a reality there, and that reality comes down to continuous integration, continuous delivery, and a common environment. How do you automate this process to the extent that it just shuttles through from the idea step to being in the consumer's hand? What does that require? Well, first of all, it requires a different mindset from the application developers, okay? They're checking in their code every night, and they check it in with the knowledge that, hey, it's going to be built, it's going to be QA'd, and it's going to be shuttled out into production. Very different mindset. Different way of approaching the code, different way of scoping out what you do. Instead of taking big giant steps a few at a time, you know, you're taking small agile steps, right? Your QA and build process has to be something that's highly orchestrated and automated. It's something that it just needs to happen. It happens on that very frequent basis. I mean, some of the online retailers, they're doing thousands of code check-ins a day. I mean, this is tough stuff. You have to automate it. And then to move it from that, you know, test, build stage into production is something that just has to be able to happen. It's got to be automated. It's got to be orchestrated. It requires common environments between all these different areas. And you also have to have that way of going, oh, despite our best efforts in DevOps, we got something out there that we need to pull back in, right? So there's a lot of these different pieces that have to come together. And I think what I'm trying to set up here is that philosophically, we see DevOps as not a tool, okay? You're not going to go out and buy the Red Hat DevOps tool. It's not a person, okay? So it's not, you go, oh, well, we're going to go out and hire the DevOps guy or gal. It's really a very multi-role sort of thing. It requires the application developers to get on board. It requires your QA team to get on board. It requires production to get on board. It requires a lot of automation. It requires development that's not the application development, it's the development of the orchestration pieces, right? So it's not a guy or gal. It's not a single tool. It's a philosophy. It's a way of approaching this. And this is really what we're looking to bring to market, is something that's very embracing of the idea that this is a philosophy, it's a methodology, It's not a thing that you go to and you say, hey, I sat in class for 4 days, and I am now the entirety of DevOps. You guys know that that's not accurate. We know it's not. A few parties have gone to market with that, but it's not going to fly. So our intent is to really focus on this automation piece, okay, on how you build that automation, the orchestration, and so on, and to approach it from a very multidisciplinary aspect, that it's not just about, about the application developers. It's not just about the QA build process. It's not just about prod. It's about all of them. So I'm going to let Pete talk a little bit about, more specifically, how this plays out in terms of the curriculum.
Thanks, Randy. Yeah, I think Randy couldn't be more correct. I think the way that it's not a person or a job role and all the other things that Randy described, it's also not a singular approach that we would want to take from a course development or curriculum development standpoint. And so what we are doing is taking sort of a multifaceted approach to how we're going to be integrating DevOps concepts into our different courses and curriculum. So at the bottom there, we have a lot of Red Hat technologies that, as you're probably very aware, align very well with DevOps concepts. And what we have already begun doing within my team is adding use cases that are complementary to and speak to DevOps principles. And so some of the courses where we're doing that are Red Hat Satellite. We have a new Satellite 6.1 course that is waiting for the final GA of Satellite 6.1 to go. But we added some significant content in there around DevOps with a bit of a focus on Puppet within Satellite in particular. Certainly our CloudForms curriculum as well, same idea. With OpenStack, and actually Randy's going to speak to some exciting new things we're doing with our OpenStack curriculum in just a moment, and on down the road. And actually with JBoss as well, there's a lot that we plan to do there as well. The idea here, though, is that these are still going to be courses in that first tier that are really anchored in an individual technology, as frankly, that's still the way a lot of our customers come to Red Hat. Not everybody is purchasing the whole suite of our technology, and so we do want to be able to meet that need. The next tier, though, is where things start to get a little more interesting. We are in active development of a couple of really completely redesigned OpenShift courses. We're similarly very excited about OpenShift Enterprise 3, which was announced this week. And we're going to be really evolving those courses from we put out early generation versions of those, and I think the new ones are going to be really anchored in a DevOps philosophy, and that's really the essence of what platform as a service model is designed to do. We are kind of working towards and thinking about adding a course that focuses on Puppet in the context of Red Hat technologies. Obviously, Puppet is used a lot of different ways, but it's a key component within our satellite offering, and it exists within OpenStack and elsewhere. So we're planning to add that over the next, and all of this really that's in that category, we're looking to add within the next quarter or so. We think these are going to be exciting additions to our portfolio. A lot of our customers, frankly, are asking for this. And then what we're going to do to really stretch ourselves a little bit is to move beyond kind of product-oriented training. And I think, as both Ken and Randy talked about, DevOps is a really broad, it's a philosophy, right? And I think Red Hat's sweet spot within that is around that CI/CD piece. And so represented here are a couple of courses that we have sketched out and are wanting to put together this summer. And I think for us, this will be a departure from being product-driven to where we're really going to be backing away from individual technologies and taking a more solution-oriented approach. So I think I'm going to turn it back to Randy. We're going to pitch and catch here to keep it lively. So Randy's going to talk a little bit about OpenStack.
All right, thanks, Pete. So we're shifting gears a little bit here to talk about a technology that certainly is still very, very important to Red Hat, that we feel we have something to bring to the market here. And we're going to try to support our efforts with Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform with what we hope is the most comprehensive training and certification program out there. Do we have anybody who is certified with us on OpenStack?
Wow, great.
Good, yeah. So we've had enormous growth in this area over the last year. There is a lot of interest. It is something that's gaining that mind share. It's also a work in progress that is under rapid development. And this is something that we are keeping up with and that we want to be the leaders in. And so we've got that first credential that's out in there in the market, accompanied by a course. that, the OpenStack Administration 1 course, which gives you preparation towards the Red Hat Certified System Administrator in Red Hat OpenStack exam. So some of you have done that. What we will soon be bringing to market is an OpenStack Administration 2 course, okay? And associated with that OpenStack Administration 2 course will be an RHCE for Red Hat OpenStack. And we're very excited about this in particular because I think this is going to really meet a need that's out there in the market. So following our model that we use with Red Hat Enterprise Linux, we have that core system administration credential at the base of it, okay? That's the stuff that everybody is going to need to know. And I would say that if you go there, you get that credential, you are somebody who can actually go and do a pilot, do a POC in your organization and get started with OpenStack. Once you start digging deeper into it, well, you've got to dig deeper, especially once you want to move from that sort of initial POC pilot stage to something that's a little bit more of a standing production implementation. Well, we've got some interesting things that we're going to do at that second level because we're going to cover Ceph, for example. Ceph storage has become the preferred storage approach, storage backend for OpenStack. And last year we acquired Inktank. Ceph is part of what Red Hat is now. And so we'll cover Ceph integration in that RHCE level. We will also get into neutron networking. Again, a somewhat more esoteric sort of thing, but a lot of implementations are going to require that sort of expertise. And then we're going to actually have a third level, okay? An OpenStack Administration 3. And we will have a certificate of expertise associated with that. And at that third level, we're going to start delving into a bit more of the use cases that might actually be applied and in effect when you're doing an OpenStack implementation. And so we're giving a very prescriptive path here. We're not, if you think about the entirety of OpenStack, there's a lot of little components and pieces in there, and one could simply cover all those pieces parts, right? We're actually taking a very canonical, prescriptive approach to say, this is what it means to go from initially getting into OpenStack to actually putting into production, embedding your IT infrastructure on it. And I think we're uniquely positioned to do this. So, one more time, back to Pete.
Well, there will be several more times, right?
No, I thought this was the last one for a while.
Oh, it is, I suppose. So again, just kind of wrapping up around content and new approaches that we're taking, and then we'll be kind of changing gears a little bit. I've talked a bit about kind of some of those next generation IT things, and obviously as we were talking through DevOps and OpenStack, I think those apply as well. We've also just introduced a new 3-day course focused on containers, and we are seeing, not surprisingly, just tremendous interest and demand around that. So that's, I think, really exciting for us, and trying to approach that holistically. I do anticipate that we will further augment this with additional container coverage. We are at least contemplating and moving into the design process of how one might build apps to be able to deploy to a container environment. We think that I've been hearing as well at this conference that there's a lot of interest in that. And then along the lines as well, we've had interest in our customers from a long time to become more solutions-oriented in our courses. And this spring, we released a new course, which I'm really excited about, called Building Advanced Red Hat Enterprise Applications. I have to look, or I always get the words out of order. But the essence of this course is that rather than coming in and working just with JEE, or just with Fuse, or just with BRMS, what we wanted to do was to be able to provide advanced middleware developers with something that was really comprehensive to at least Red Hat's middleware portfolio, whereby you begin with an existing JEE app. It's actually a travel industry or airline app. So you kind of already have this built application, and then over the course of the course, how's that, of 4 days, you utilize Fuse to bring in integration capabilities. You use data virtualization. You use JBoss Data Grid. You use both BRMS and the BPM suite. And so you're actually seeing in action how you can take a standalone app and turn it into something that's got a lot of enterprise capabilities wrapped around it. Once again, we've run this course at this point. It's so new. We just launched it a few weeks ago, ran it internally for a lot of our consultants, and the feedback was really outstanding. I think it was good validation that as they are out engaged with our customers, they say, yeah, this is exactly what we feel we need and our customers need as well. So expect to see more around that as well. Ken?
Thank you, Pete. And one thing I just want to go back and quickly add to some of the fervor around OpenStack. We're very committed to maintain our position as the leader in OpenStack training. And it might be of interest to you to know how we're doing on that. And I thought I'd share just a few data points for you. In FY15, we actually grew the number of OpenStack certified professionals 7-fold. And in fact, certified more people in our fourth quarter of FY15 than we did in our first and second quarters combined. So we've seen very significant growth in the number of certified OpenStack professionals. And in fact, our OpenStack CL210 course is now the most popular course in our entire portfolio outside of the RHCE Linux track. So we're seeing very significant adoption of OpenStack training and OpenStack certification. And through this new learning path, we expect to continue to maintain our leadership position in the industry. We're very dedicated to that, and we'd love your input to the extent that you have any on how we can continue to do a good job or even a better job in doing that. One last thing on DevOps before I pivot into the consumability piece is that DevOps is something that doesn't traditionally speak to a classroom IoT environment. It's a little bit of a foreign concept, but as Pete and Randy pointed out, our focus is not going to be on the entirety of DevOps. Instead, we're going to focus on that delivery pipeline, specifically the automation capabilities. And we see a lot of different opportunities for content around there, not just content, but prescriptive content. And we feel it meets a very, very specific need in the industry, one that really, frankly, is just a major gap out there. And no single vendor, I think, has done a really good job of attempting to address it. So we're very much looking forward to going on that journey on DevOps. And in case you're wondering about the market for that, in the last year, the number of job postings that reference DevOps-related skills grew by 3-fold. That's actually faster than the growth of OpenStack, which is growing at a rate of 2-fold over the last 3 years. So there's high demand for OpenStack skills for sure. We're seeing very high demand for DevOps-related skills. And in fact, you can do a job search right now on pretty much any job search engine. You'll see thousands of job postings that relate to DevOps-related skills. And when you drill into that, a lot of those skills have to do with that delivery pipeline. So that's what we're going to focus on. It's our kind of what we do, what we credibly do, and we're going to continue focusing on doing a good job with that. So let's talk a little bit about the second component of training, which is consumability. It's great to have new content. It's great to have new certification exams. But if it's not consumable, then that could be a problem in delivering. And so there's a couple of things that I hear from customers that get in the way of training. And these are barriers that we want to break down. And maybe you also experience some of these barriers. The first is, a lot of new staff. I talked about the 5 million or so jobs that are going to go unfilled. We have a lot of new people entering the industry at all times, people moving into different jobs. A lot of people in other industries want to get into IT because it's good salary and good industry with high growth. With all that new staff comes the need to be able to train these people up. And so that's a pressure that a lot of our customers have. Secondly, and especially within our emerging technology stack, we're seeing that these releases and the product functionality updates are very frequent, they're very common. And so how do you stay on top of those skills? You can get a class today on OpenStack. What's going to happen 6-9 months from now is, there might be very important wholesale changes to the technology that might cause you to worry about whether or not your skills have been up to date. So how do you deal with that? How do you maintain continuous learning so that you're not just learning at a point in time, kind of one and done, but instead you have a continuous engagement with the material? Thirdly is time. It's interesting, in a prior company that I worked at, we did an analysis. We asked all the customers that were coming to classes, what is your major what is your major resource? What is your major opportunity? And what they told us, that their biggest constraint is not price or money or that component of training. It's actually their time, that their time is their most valuable asset. And so we realized that, and especially with all the demands on our IT staffs, the increasing demands, it's very important that we manage our time appropriately. Any time spent on training has to be well justified. It has to be fit into a busy schedule. So how do you optimize that? Fourth, cross-training. Increasingly, many of our solutions require multiple products. So how do you train across product? How do you even train not just beyond within Red Hat, but beyond Red Hat into the collection of Red Hat products and other technologies that complement and are used alongside our products? How do you also engage in performance support? So performance support is the idea that, yeah, I learned something, but I want to go back and recall, what I learned. I want to use it as a performance support device. Think of a book. You get a book from a class. You want to go back to the shelf on the book. You want to find the book so you can look through and see, okay, this is what I learned, or here's that thing I should have picked up. And you want to do that in the course of performing your job. So we call that performance support. And increasingly, people want to use their educational IP, the IP they get from their education classes, as a performance support vehicle. So how do we facilitate that? A book is great. But a book isn't easily searchable. A book is not digital. So there's ways to make it digital. There's ways to make it searchable and indexable. So we'll talk about that as well. Global coverage. Increasingly, our customers are global in their outlook and their nature. They're hiring internationally. Advances in web conferencing, audio conferencing, et cetera, make it possible to have very distributed teams. So how do we keep all those teams together and train in a consistent way? That means you need to incorporate multiple languages. You need to incorporate digital and virtual learning methods. Not everybody is located in the same city where your headquarters is based. So how do you deal with that sort of a training dynamic? And then finally, cost is, in fact, a valuable asset and an important asset to be managed. There's a CIO that I was talking to recently. He said there's only 2 reasons he answers the phone. One is security, and the other is cost. The cost is incredibly important, especially if you think about the high and increasing compensation rates of some of these very advanced OpenStack engineers, advanced DevOps engineers. They're a very rare bird, and they're commanding very high salaries. A lot of CIOs have told me, Ken, there's a limit. I'm not going to pay above a certain limit for that. How do I take somebody and kind of train them up and do it in a cost-effective way? So these are some of the challenges that we realize represent the reality of consuming training, that we want to say, okay, we have an existing model for delivering training. We offer multiple different modalities of training. We're going to continue doing that. But how do we make it even better? How do we provide even more options so that our training becomes even more consumable? So I'm going to turn over to Pete, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Red Hat Learning Subscription and how the Red Hat Learning Subscription helps address some of these challenges.
Great, thanks, Ken. So that was a great setup. So we're really excited to be bringing this to market. We actually announced it right at the beginning of Summit that we're launching a new subscription-based training offering, creatively called Red Hat Learning Subscription, under the mantra of call a duck a duck. But what customers will get from the subscription is access to our entire portfolio of self-paced training content delivered online. That's over 100 days of content. I think what's important to me and to many of the customers I speak to is it's the same content that you get in the classroom. We produce all our stuff in XML and we render it out. It's easy enough to render it out to HTML to be able to serve up. So this is not kind of a derivative, less than sort of thing. It's the same course material you'd get in a classroom. We've augmented that course material, recognizing that when you're just reading, that can be a little dry, and you also sometimes miss some of the insight that comes from an instructor in a classroom. So to that end, we've added hundreds of videos. 300 is honestly very conservative. It would have to be a couple hundred more than that. But the idea of these videos is that we take folks either from my team or others that are domain experts, and we record them delivering what they would deliver in a classroom. And so you get that kind of incremental insight that really just isn't going to come out of a book. And those are just embedded within the course content. And then perhaps most importantly, it's labs. And for technical training, a course lives and dies by its labs. And in our case, from the get-go, as we started launching self-paced training, we felt an imperative to be able to deliver, again, the same labs that you would get in a classroom. In our case, they're all hosted out in the cloud. They're either natively in EC2, or we actually also use a company called Revello Systems to host those. Through that infrastructure, as Ken was talking about global, we're able to regionalize the deployment of labs for our customers across all of the AWS footprint. So we're live with all of our 30-plus courses across all 7 data centers, primary EC2 data centers. So that performs a lab performance experience. And then, of course, you have to have some help on the back end, so we do provide support to our customers via email. And some of it's, I can't log in kind of stuff. But we also, my team, who are really bright technical domain experts, also provides content-level support, and we'll continue to do that going forward. A little bit about our course list. By no means do I intend to go through these, but folks, as we talk about this new offering, inevitably folks want to say, well, what's in there? So I'll let you guys kind of eyeball it. I'll just highlight a few things that are, to me at least, new and exciting. Let's see, what's in that list? So I mentioned actually Satellite 6. We are just finishing the update for Satellite 6.1, so that will become a part of this portfolio. The new container course that I mentioned will be part of the portfolio. And then, of course, the entire RHCE track will be part of the portfolio as well. And that continues to be a really strong and important part of our company and part of our training business as well. Within our cloud portfolio, it's kind of same thing. All of our existing OpenStack courses are there. So in addition to our core course, which is currently titled Red Hat OpenStack Administration, you get that course, and OpenStack's moving a little fast. So one of the great things about having a subscription is as we release, right now, of course, the one we have out is on OpenStack version 6. When we publish version 7, you'll just auto-magically get that added to your subscription as well. We do have some additional classes, actually, that are in our current portfolio that are kind of advanced courses around OpenStack, and those are also available. The Rev course, actually, just as one final one, the Rev course we just updated to Rev 351, to be very specific. But that was one that was due for an update for a while, and so I was glad to see us be able to get that one aligned with the most recent release of our offering. Within our middleware portfolio, we actually have a really extensive portfolio of middleware offerings, very complete coverage of our JBoss EAP offering, covering both administration and development topics. I mentioned that new integrated solutions-oriented JBoss course. It's developing advanced JBoss applications. Again, I have to read it every time. But that course is included in here as well. And then, not to be left out, we have a pretty comprehensive collection of coverage around both our Fuse platform as well as our BRMS and BPM platform. Both of those have been updated substantially just within the last year. All the Fuse content is based on Fuse 6.1, and the BRMS content, if I'm keeping track right, is on BRMS 6.02. So that's just nice, fresh content as well that was aligned with product releases that have occurred in the last year. So a little bit more about kind of the learning experience from this. I mentioned the video demos. This is a screen capture. It might not be the best screen capture, but the idea here is what you would get out of one of these sessions. They're anywhere from 5 to maybe 12 minutes long. And it's really the instructor sharing his or her screen of what they would present in a classroom. And so if they're talking through a lab and it's kind of a guided exercise, that's what you're going to get. If it's a little bit of context and philosophy or it's a diagram, we might be talking you through a diagram in those videos. One of the enhancements Ken mentioned that we think is really going to be very popular and very valuable for our customers as part of this subscription is the notion that this entire portfolio of content is all indexed and searchable. It's one of the joys of having an XML base for our content. So if you needed to, pull up a particular Linux command or you had something you were trying to troubleshoot, you would be able to simply type that into the search field, and every single reference to whatever that is through our entire course portfolio is going to pop up for you in kind of an intelligent search fashion. Where we think this is going to be really relevant, years ago, I did a survey of our customers, and 70% of our customers used our printed course books for reference after the course. And that's great, but when something breaks or when you're, what have you, you don't want to have to kind of go back. And honestly, we never indexed our books that well. And so, with this, not only are you going to be able to access in real time something that you may have already learned, but maybe not done in a year, but you can look at our entire portfolio and go, this is exactly the use case or context in which I need to solve a problem. So this is, I think, an exciting enhancement. And then finally, I've talked a little bit about the hands-on labs already. Again, this is the same user experience, the same labs that you would do in a classroom. You're simply shelling into AWS, and you would have the same. Typically, all of our classes really have at least 2 VMs. Many of our cloud classes have 5 or 6 VMs, and we're spinning those up on demand for you over the course of the full year of your subscription, the same way that you would experience them in a physical classroom. Another new addition to the portfolio that I'm also, I have a lot to be excited about these days, but we have begun producing high definition video instructor-led training courses. We actually have 3 of these that are kind of in the final stages of production right now. We started, not surprisingly, with our Red Hat System Administration 1, 2, and 3 courses. If anybody knows, that's the illustrious Phil Sweeney there, who's one of our many rock star instructors around the world.
Raise your hand, Phil.
Is he in the building? There's Phil. That's right. So if you want autographs later, you
may
can.
have mistaken him for George Clooney.
Yeah. But what's fantastic about this is that we actually, over the course of a full week, recorded Phil delivering the entire System Administration 1 course the same way that he would do if he were in front of a room full of students. And we feel it's a very robust, very rich learning experience. I think it absolutely goes beyond that kind of text and embedded video that we described to where truly I think it's about as close as you can get to live training without going to live training. Wrapped around that, we've put together a really, I think, intelligent player that has a number of different functions that I think our customers will appreciate. You can launch directly to your labs right out of the player, so you'll go right into that AWS environment directly out of the player. It's all transcribed, and so some people learn better by reading, and so you can toggle that on and off. Ken's favorite feature is the ability to play on fast forward, and if you get to know Ken, you'll understand that that's just consistent with him. But the idea is that for some of our learners, they maybe know 60%, and they just need to be able to, on an accelerated basis, go through the content. All of the content within a course is also indexed and searchable, so the entire 86,000 words, Phil, of that transcription is all also indexed. And so if you wanted to remember, what was it that Phil said about Chmod, you can actually just type that in and go right to the chapter and verse where he was talking at length, evidently, about that particular topic. So just all in all, we think that this is going to be kind of a best of breed. It's certainly, we're not the only vendors that are out there doing this, but what's very evident in IT training right now is that there is a rapid inflection towards this learning modality. As bandwidth becomes less and less of an issue in many markets, this is simply a more robust and more engaging learning experience, and so we're excited to add this to our portfolio. To connect the dots, these courses, as they publish, will again simply become part of the Red Hat learning subscription. So these will just become additional content that will be available to you over the course of the year. We, of course, have plans to record additional courses. So this summer, we'll be doing the JBoss administration course. And then after that, we're a little open-ended, but we have a number of other thoughts on what we're going to do immediately after that.
And if you'd like to test drive these, you can do that in the hallway, right?
Great call. Thank you. Actually, right out the door and to the right, we have 8 demo stations set up, and you can hear Phil for yourself. Or you can just talk to him, either one.
You can get his autograph.
Yep. So the way we think that these modalities will help, it's not going to rip and replace in-person training. We're going to continue to do very robust scheduling of public training, private training, virtual training. We expect that we will always be in that business, and there will always be a huge market for that. This is really to accentuate it and to help adapt to some of these needs that some of our customers have. And in many ways, it's an accentuation of a live class experience. What I would love to be able to do is to be able to offer some of these things to students as they attend a live class as an additional benefit. That's something we'll be exploring as we get more experience with it. But when we talk about those challenges we talked about earlier on the left, here are some of the ways we think the Red Hat Learning subscription solves that. One is when we talked about new staff, one of the things that a lot of IT managers tell me that they want is they want a prescripted path to be able to acquire the skills. They don't want to just be given a bunch of courses and say, go have fun. They want us to be able to say, okay, here's how you go through this and in what order to be able to end up with this skill or talent that you need in support of your projects or your business. And so one of the things that we're going to do, and we're going to be continually improving the subscription, is organizing all the content into learning paths so that as you go through consuming the content, you'll be able to consume it in a structured manner, and you'll be able to see exactly where you are along the path. Not only will you be able to do that, but if you are an IT manager or IT director, you'll be able to see where your staff are in terms of their journey along that path to obtaining the skill sets. New releases, Pete talked about it, but in a world where we have release cycles of 3, 6, 9 months, you get access to the latest and greatest at all times through the term of your subscription. So as soon as we have content available in production, we immediately make it available in the Red Hat Learning subscription. So you are always guaranteed to have access to the latest and greatest content. The great thing about the Red Hat Learning subscription is you have the ability to consume training the way you want to consume it, in small chunks or in big chunks, depending upon your availability. I know a lot of IT professionals, sometimes they have an hour a day, but they don't have time to go to an entire week of training or to get on an airplane and go somewhere and do that. That cost is too heavy. That cost is too burdensome, not so much in terms of dollars and cents, but in terms of the time of those precious resources being out of production. So the on-demand learning helps solve that problem. Cross-training. Some of you who may have listened to Red Hat's earnings calls may have heard a little bit of data from our company's officers about how more and more of our customers are not just buying Linux, but they're buying multiple different product components across multiple different categories. Our fastest growing courses are all in our emerging technology spaces. So as more and more of our customers go multi-product, there's an increasing need for us to be able to provide access to content across all those products and to be able to provide a forum where we can show how those products work together. And so the ability to access all of the courses makes it very simple to do that. And let's just put this in context of OpenStack. Some of you here may not have had the chance to attend any of our OpenStack classes. That doesn't mean you're not interested in it. That doesn't mean that you don't have the desire to acquire those skills. But if you don't have a project, or if you haven't been tasked to go do a POC of some kind on OpenStack, you may not have the funding to come to an OpenStack class. And what I want to do is remove that barrier. I want you to be able to play with all of our technologies, to be able to experience our OpenStack training courses, even if you don't have a current project or a funded budget to be able to go and pursue OpenStack skills. So what this allows you to do is to be able to access all of our portfolio of products, to play around, to get exposure to all of our emerging technologies so that you can try them out and see them from a training perspective and not have to worry about that barrier in terms of a cost and justification for budget money to go to training. Performance support, I think Pete covered that. One thing I'll just say, I'm very proud of our global coverage. One of the things we really offer in Red Hat training is the ability to consume our content globally. We're active in 80, 90 countries around the world, 5 continents, 9 languages. So a lot of this great content is available to the global teams that a lot of you are a part of. And then finally, the cost. So I'm not going to put prices up here on the screen because they're going to vary by geography and by the terms of your individual agreements, et cetera, with Red Hat. But what I will say is that the list price of this is priced approximately around the price of attending 2 classes. So if you kind of have a choice. You can pay for 1 class, and you can get 1 class a year, and you can kind of do your one and done thing, and that's fine. A lot of people do that. But if you want to consume or have plans to consume more than 1 course over the course of a year, there's huge value in the Red Hat Learning subscription because you get access to our entire portfolio for essentially the price of 2. And so we think that's real tremendous value to customers. We expect that there will be a lot of uptake. In fact, we did a soft launch a few weeks ago, and we've already gotten a lot of demand, a lot of transactions that have come in from it, simply because of the cost factor is there in addition to the other benefits I discussed. So I think what I'd like to talk about a little bit is our roadmap for the Red Hat Learning subscription, because while we are making something available now, this is not going to be something we just roll out and don't improve. We actually have huge plans for the Red Hat Learning subscription. So right now, the top tier, we call it the basic tier, is what's available right now. And as you can see, and Pete walked us through the features, it includes self-paced courses. It includes our high-definition video ILT courses as they come out. It includes the hands-on labs. It includes email support on both content as well as technology. But what we want to do is expand that. We want to include things like certification. We want to include higher levels of support. So is there somebody I can call and talk to live on the phone who can help me with a chapter or a topic? We want to include new content topics, maybe content topics that are more modular. They don't necessarily fit into a 4 or 5 day course, but maybe it's like a 2 or 3 hour topic that I'm interested in. We want to be able to build those and make them available to subscribers. In addition, and it's not listed here, we realize a lot of you in the course of performing your jobs are interacting with our customer support portal. So Red Hat's customer support portal is a very important part of the Red Hat ecosystem. It gets something like 2 to 3 times the amount of traffic that redhat.com gets, because that's where we deliver a lot of our support value. And so subscribers to these different tiers in the Red Hat Learning subscription will not only be able to access the content and some of these features, but we're also going to give them access to be able to participate within the customer support portal communities. So there's going to be a social learning component of this once we can get that rolling in September, October of this year. And then finally, we do have plans to offer live training as part of the Red Hat Learning subscription. We are still developing exactly what that will look like, but we're very committed to the idea of continuing to offer live training alongside asynchronous training. We want to be able to provide that value. Some customers have asked for live training to be included in it, so we'll have the facility to do that as part of a premium tier. So we're going to have this tiered model, and the primary reason that we're going to have a tiered model is to give all of you various options for how you want to consume your training. And for some people, basic is fine. For others, standard is fine. For others, they prefer the premium. And we want to be able to give you as many options as possible when you think about how to consume it. So I think I'm turning it over to you, Pete.
Yeah. So just to expound a bit more on 2 of these additional features. One is expert seminars. And one thing I've always wanted to be able to bring into our training curricula, but it's just difficult to practically do, is to get the insights that are coming from around our kind of broader community and make those available to our customers. And so as part of the new Red Hat Learning subscription, we're going to begin shooting videos largely of experts within our organization, but outside of training. And so we, in fact, have 2 of these scheduled to record next week. One is going to be a DevOps architectural overview, and then the other one will be around Ceph and the Ceph architecture in the context of OpenStack. And I think to Ken's point, these are nice, shorter format deliverables that are going to come from domain experts where we think there's going to be a lot of really useful IP coming out of those. And again, as being a standard or premium subscriber, you'll simply get these as we publish them over the term of the subscription. On the right-hand side there is a little bit about support. We definitely are interested in providing an enhanced level of support from just email. And so when we launch our standard offering and a new portal that will go along with that, we want to augment kind of that email support with the ability to chat in real time with somebody who is an instructor or has instructor level skills. And then really what we think is very compelling is the notion of an instructor office hour, where you can schedule a time, hopefully identify the topic area or areas where you want assistance, and then we can match that up with somebody who's a domain expert in that area, and you can have a live synchronous dialogue with that person to help you through something where you just may simply be stuck. That's not something that's often offered in subscription training that's available from other vendors today. We think that that's going to be a really compelling addition to the portfolio. Ken?
I think Randy is next.
He is?
Yes.
All right. So I'm actually very excited about a particular standard feature. I'm actually excited about all of this because I think it's an incredibly compelling offer. I've talked about it with some of you and people elsewhere who, they love the time component, all of those challenges that Ken spoke to. I think this is really meeting a need that exists for many of you. As the person who is overseeing the certification program, I'm very happy to say that the standard offering is also going to include support for certification. Specifically, what we're going to do is that we'll define learning paths. Just for example, let's say we're talking about Red Hat Certified System Administrator, our core RHEL cert. We would say that there's a learning path or perhaps multiple learning paths. Maybe it's the System Administration 1 and System Administration 2. or it could be the RHCSA Rapid Track. Both of those would be learning paths. Upon completion of those learning paths in the subscription, you will now be entitled to take the associated exam. And this would all be part of your subscription. So let's say you want to knock out several learning paths in a year, you would be able to do that. And I think this really is especially inviting to a particular audience, and that is the Red Hat certified architects. This is perfect for the Red Hat certified architects because they're very multi-product. They have a number of credentials that you have to earn in order to become a Red Hat certified architect. And so the subscription really plays very well with that because you're getting all of that content, okay? And then with the standard offering, you have the opportunity to take those exams. And here's the additional piece that I'm going to add. Because we want to encourage people into this program, we want to make it something sustainable. Once you become an RHCA, a Red Hat Certified Architect, we are going to offer you a 50% discount on the Red Hat Learning subscription, okay? And that's not sort of a one-time while we're launching promotion. That is our plan. Because we want you to become a Red Hat Certified Architect, and we want you to remain a Red Hat Certified Architect. It's a huge investment of time, effort, let's be honest, money. The subscription makes it more cost effective, but once you have attained that goal, we want to keep you. We want to keep you engaged. We want to keep you as Red Hat Certified Architects. We think it's good for you, your career, your employer. It's good for Red Hat. This is how you're going to have a lot of exposure to other products. You don't have to keep going over the same things that you've done in the past. Maybe you certify in a new technology area instead. I think the subscription is a perfect fit for people who really want to work in that more architecture mode, and I think more people will do that. You know, if you think about sort of that pyramid, there's a lot of sysadmins, and they funnel up to architects. I think the nature of DevOps, I think the nature of the IT landscape today means that that's really opening up, is that the world is going to need a lot more architects. This is really custom made for that particular job role. And so now I think we're very close to the end, so we're going to have a little bit of time for Q&A.
Yeah, question. Yes.
Yes. Yes, yeah, you don't have to earn and then get it. If you are a Red Hat Certified Architect, you are eligible now.
Right now.
Yes.
Those test kiosks, any plans to move those out to more cities?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So the short answer is that one of our key initiatives is in fact to expand availability, and we have some work that is underway. I think what you're going to find is there's a lot more availability in the very near future. In your particular location, I know there's going to be availability. Yes. Hold me to that next year.
So,
Yeah. And I can actually say that we have some very specific plans around Minneapolis, LJ. That is in fact our next location. I don't know that we were planning on your basement, but. Okay, all right. Well, you're flexible, good.
yeah. More.
Yes. Right, so the question is whether we would have considered a monthly or quarterly subscription. It's an interesting question. And I guess I would say in terms of the totality of the subscription, that's not something that I've considered at length. Our customers today who are looking for that shorter term often are looking for a single course. And all of everything that I described is available you can purchase single courses kind of a la carte, if you will, and those have a 90-day term to them. But we don't at the moment have plans to offer the whole subscription on a monthly basis.
And one of the considerations there is we want to also make it very simple when you're engaging in a procurement cycle with Red Hat for your product subscription. We want to make it very easy to attach learning as a coterminous element of that subscription purchase. So if you talk to your procurement and they're already in the process of working with Red Hat to to finance that subscription, it's easier to include training as part of that conversation. So by making it a one-year term, it also helps to make that a one consolidated procurement cycle, which I think has value to customers.
Way in the back.
Yes. So the earlier question is, are we going to do something to expand availability? My answer, yes, means worldwide. Okay. So right now we're pretty good, but obviously not complete. In North America, we have some pretty good coverage, but not complete in Western Europe. That leaves a whole lot of the world that we have yet to go to, and my plan for this is that we will be in the rest of the world by the time we meet next year for Summit.
Yes.
Is this offered for individual subscriptions or groups like to give a site license for multiple people?
Right.
And also, where do you purchase this through? Your reseller or is it right through Red Hat?
Yeah, great questions. First off, it's remarkable neither of us said this, but it's sold on a named user basis. So, and it absolutely, so it's kind of a per person, and absolutely you can buy multiple subscriptions for a team, and whatever relationship you have with Red Hat would apply to the subscriptions as well. And this is largely available through all channels and all markets is the way that we would say it today. This is globally in all routes.
One more. Yeah, you could go through a reseller for sure for it. You can go through a training reseller. You can go through a channel reseller. Yep. And one other thing I'll just want to add is that we will consider a corporate sort of site license component or version of this. We're just not there right now. We need to get a little bit of experience selling it on an individual named user basis, and then we'll do the math and we'll see how that looks for a corporate license. So some people have already told me they're interested in that, and it's not a formal program now. If somebody wanted to approach us, and we could work with them to try to figure something out, but we need more data before we could offer a corporate site license version of it on our formal price list.
Yeah. Yes. You want to start and I'll follow?
Yeah. Okay. So Barry, you're raising a point that has been a point of discussion for some time, and I've always been very transparent in my position that I would like to see greater technology availability for people who are certified. What I would say is the learning subscription is actually a really good avenue to get to that technology availability for everybody, because if you're wanting to take a look at Satellite 6, for example. You've got that course available. You have the lab environment available. Is it quite the same as being able to download the bits and deploy it on some boxes that you have for yourself? Oh, no, it's not quite the same, but it's also a lot less trouble, right? So I think that the learning subscription, to some extent, does provide that technology access that we've talked about, for many years. Is there something that we could do incrementally for people who are certified? We're always looking about, things that we could maybe do that would give you additional access and availability. Again, you're an RHCA. You're eligible for, the discounted price. We might consider some other features and options.
So I think we have time for one more question. So right here. Oh, you're saying to answer the question?
Well, you know, actually developers.redhat.com, yes. I'm not sure that you actually have access to all products there. Oh, okay. Oh. Yeah, it's a good start, developers.redhat.com.
So one more question? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, great question. Yeah, yeah, so absolutely yes on both counts. We announced the RHCA discount effective essentially today, so it's moving forward. But you know, we can talk if you'd like about if you've already purchased it. But the second question was about an upgrade path, and absolutely, when we roll out standard tier and premium tier, if you're already a basic subscriber, we'll have an easy upgrade path for you to make it very simple for you to get some of the new features if that's what you desire to do. Okay, perfect. So I'd like to thank Pete and Randy for being here, and thank you to all of you for joining our session today. And look forward to working with you at Red Hat Training. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.